So in this video, I'm going to go over some dark type of humor or some dark information that might be helpful, maybe to protect your family, maybe just so interesting facts about body weight. Maybe you're going to work for the prison system someday. I don't know. But I've seen a lot of interesting YouTube videos where people build their own security system out of lasers, have like cool little fire weapons, or people showing measurements or doing history on the Spanish Inquisition and things like that. And they just have very unusual information that people don't know about. And everybody goes, cool shit, cool shit. Well, in this YouTube video, I'm going to go over some dark, cool shit. Excuse me, my stomach. I'm trying to hold back any vomit, so I just spit the taste out of my mouth because I vomited earlier. People are literally, for 25 years, have been allowed to hurt me, destroy my body. So my mother, she did a lot of fucked up shit to my body that was illegal. She slipped me her own drugs so that she could change the channel on the TV or get her way. She used to, still sometimes doctors do this too, but to a lesser extent. But during childhood, my body was just some plaything for a crazy elderly woman who was going mentally ill. Imagine the most mentally ill witch you ever met, and imagine if she lived in a fairy tale land with her husband where she's perfect, but the whole other family, like her other sons, like both her sons know she's nuts and she's doing crazy things. The grandson knows she's doing crazy things. Some adopted kid from another family can see that she's doing crazy things. Other teachers and doctors are seeing that she's doing crazy things. And this woman has to literally pick up everything, take an orphan to Texas, just so she doesn't get caught for her crazy behaviors. And then when Texas starts hearing about these crazy behaviors, like her son has, got really sick from some weird allergy attack and pills she gave him, and then she had to move him to New Mexico and Maine and keep on making up stories and lies just to avoid responsibility for her own actions. Imagine this woman completely like that, a complete nutcase, adopting a child in her elderly old age. As the father, her husband, doesn't want a child. He doesn't want to adopt. He doesn't want any foster kids. So he just says, okay, you can have a pet child, but you got to take care of it. You got to take care of this pet on your own. Like if this was a little girl that my father was raising, like his elderly wife is some little child and she wants a pet puppy dog. So, okay, you can have a puppy, but you got to take care of it. I'm not going to feed that puppy. I'm not going to go bring that puppy to the vet. You got to save up your money and you got to take care of that puppy dog on your own. Okay, Daddy, thank you for the puppy dog. This is what my mother did to me. We had an elderly woman who just wanted another pet in the house. She had 2 African-American foster children. She had a dog she wasn't taking care of that literally was completely out of health. She wasn't walking the dog. She wasn't getting the dog exercise. And she wasn't even trying to find the dog a healthy diet. So this dog was overweight, out of energy, even at a young age. When I came in, the dog might have been 7, and it was already overweight, sleeping all the time, and not looking for walks. You got to try to get a dog to go on walks and get exercise, like my father did with his dogs. But my mother obviously wasn't very good at taking care of animals, but she wanted more and more. She was like, these animals aren't giving me any love, because you're not bringing them on walks. If you bring your dog, Princey, on a lot more walks, then the dog will come over with the leash wanting a walk, even sometimes in his old age. But see, my mother didn't do that. And I was just an orphan in an orphanage. My mother wanted another pet. She had 2 black pets. Now she wants a little white pet. So she gets a white pet, but one night she wants to watch her own TV show, but we're supposed to watch the kids' TV show. So she goes in the medicine cabinet, calls the kid over and says, take these pills. These are your pills. Take your medicine. And she slips in some other drugs. The kid has an overdose and so severely. The kid has lost his vision. He's screaming for help. He can't stand up. He's falling. He's crawling over a pile of newspapers. My mother's on the phone. They're telling her to bring me to the emergency room. But if my mother does that, she'll get caught. She'll get caught for what she did. So she goes, you don't know what you're talking about, and hangs up the phone and leaves me to sleep off an overdose, knowing that this is an emergency situation. Meanwhile, my father is oblivious, just like, what? Oh, well, put on the football game already. Meanwhile, I'm passed out unconscious from a drug overdose at the age of 7. So remember, my body was a plaything for a crazy woman from age 5 all the way on to 19. And I was being brainwashed, so I believed some of these medical conditions my mother told me to repeat over and over. Even at the age of 21, when doctors used to ask me, what are your disabilities, what are your illnesses, all I have to go on is what my mother would allow me to speak on. And the doctors, if they told me a little too much, I was ripped out of there and brought halfway across the country. There was always moving me around, but it was always right after I mentioned the overdose at age 7. I had no clue that this had something to do with my mother behavior going out of control, but now as an adult, it's clear to me. I mean, it's obvious to any adult when you go over the information. But see, I was a young child, then I was a teenager, then I was a young adult, and then I was just in my 20s, still kind of a young adult. Now I'm 32, and if you take the information I've always had and you type it into that little computer of a brain I have, it comes out with 2 plus Y equals death. Oh, fuck. Okay, how about 5 minus X equals mother gave me meds at this time? Oh, X is, oh shit. Oh shit, I know what X is now. Oh man, my mother told me X just was an allergy attack. But now I've asked the doctors, okay, is these side effects 4? We'll say that the math problem 4 is me telling the doctor I lost my vision after my mother called me in a hallway, administered medications. We were supposed to watch Batman Mr. Freeze, which my mother and father did not want to watch, but they were putting in for me anyways. But my mother definitely did not want to watch this. I'm on the middle of the floor. An hour prior, I take medication. These medications start kicking in. I can feel them. But then I lose my vision. I lose my speech. I start panicking, but I can't stand up. My whole entire body goes numb. I'm screaming for help. My mother goes on the phone to call for help, but they tell her to bring me to the emergency room. They tell her that those medications can't cause a reaction like this, and they tell her to bring me to the emergency room. My mother refuses and hangs up the phone. Now, why would your mother hang up on a phone with such an emergency situation? It's very clear to my mother and me that something really fucking bad is going down. My father's just in the chair kind of ignoring all of it while the TV runs. But she hangs up the phone as coming back in the room. Now I'm unconscious. My breathing is slowing down. I'm near my father's feet, passed out, about to go out, and boom, she's done it. She's done it. Now, what does this add up to? The symptoms of losing my vision, not being able to feel. Well, what happened when I woke up? My body was changed for life. And when I went to school, the teachers called me into the hallway and asked me why my body was different. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, when you write your name and you're moving your hand to write your name, you're doing it kind of slightly different. You're kind of shaking a little bit. And when you walk up and down the hallway for the last week, you're walking different. And your speech, your speech sounds different. Your whole body, the way you're using it is different. And this continued every day for 25 years since that day. It's like night and day. I went to sleep and I woke up in fucking my mother's fantasy world where I have to have a fucked up life. But it's not a fantasy, it's a real world. It's just my mother made up a bunch of stories around her own behavior. Like, for instance, my mother thought a 5-year-old and a bunch of children were out to get her. For instance, I came home from school and every toy I owned was in the trash can gone. It was out, the trash took it. I asked my mother why she threw away all my toys. She got in my face and said, "It's because you like the toys better than me." My mother also came up with a fantasy at the doctor's office to get me drugged because she thought I was out to get her. She thought I was writing my old last name on things to get back at her, when really, I just showed my mother a swimming medal I won in the orphanage. They brought me to the YMCA. I treaded some water. The orphanage gave me a swimming medal made out of brass. They wrote ZG on the back and said, "Good job." I put it in the Lego box because they said to make sure no other kids from the orphanage get it. This was St. Anne's Orphanage. I move in with these new foster parents. I go to show my mother this medal, and she comes up with 1,001 fantasies. Well, that can't be from an orphanage. There's no swimming in an orphanage. Oh, no, that must be a black kid's medal because they're athletic. That can't be your medal. No, and look, you writing ZG to get back at me. Yes, you're out to get me, and that's what this is. You're always out to get me. Yes, you're out to get me, Zach. You're out to, yeah, you little 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-olds, you're out to get me. Yeah, you are. Just you, though, Zach, you're out to get me. This was my mother losing her fucking mind. Now imagine that person gets to play with your body like a doll, like her own little doll. Like imagine that you had somebody play with your body like an action figure. Like if she wanted to pop pills in your body, she could. If she wanted to throw you around, she could. If she wanted to smack you around, she could. If she wanted to put you in dresses, she could. If she wanted to change you into a different type of underwear with poisonous, itchy poisons in it, she could. If she wants to stop you from taking a shower, she could. If she wants you to take a shower all the time until you're dry, your skin is dry, using burning hot water until you're red like a lobster, she could. If she wants to give you cold ice water, she could. If she wants to feed you disgusting food, she could. If she wants to feed you good food, she could. If she wants to throw you to New Mexico where you're not allowed to get food, she could. If she wants to put black people in charge of you, she could. If she wants to slip you drugs to make you slow, she could. If she wants to change your education, she could. If she wants to slip you drugs at home, she could. If she wants to change your imbalance and try to give you girly medicine for menopause and slip it into your meds, she could. If she wants to take a 7-year-old and give that 7-year-old her menopause medication, she could. If she wants to give opiates to that 7-year-old and he overdoses, making him have a neurological disorder where he can't use his nervous system for the rest of his life and has a speech impediment, he has to go to physical therapy and speech therapy, he's asking for help at the doctors want to help him, but then that mother wants to bring him to Texas and then drug him some more and do some more crazy shit, she's allowed to. That is what happened to me. That is what I have to go through. And today I'm going to be killed by it because nobody wants to really do anything about it. And the doctors still haven't been properly informed with my case. Actually, the doctors are still giving their health care based on this woman's fantasies. Yes, when I go to the emergency room, I only can get help with this woman's fantasies. Anything I tell them, I can't get help with. Nope. I go in there saying I just had a seizure. I wake up after being bloody on the side of the road unconscious. And they're like, well, what could be possibly wrong with him? I just told you. This has been going on for 25 years. It comes from multiple overdoses and a bunch of medication issues. It's called a neurological disorder. It's a problem with my nervous system. Doctors in the past have diagnosed it as seizures when I get my head all bloody and you guys, well, we don't have much of the ambulances telling us that. Well, when did the ambulances arrive? We don't know. Well, you were, did they talk to me? No. No, they just said that the witnesses on hand said you were fine 1 minute and then on the floor flopping like the fish next. Why don't you listen to the patient who has information for 25 years? Oh, that's right. Again, my mother and father made sure that no doctors would ever listen to me. They wrote down 15 years of bullshit in like 5 different states. They also brought me when any doctor was getting close to actually being able to diagnose what was really going on, I was promptly taken out of there. And then my mother would use what she had for medical files to keep on pushing this madness downhill. I just want to know when this madness ends. When do I get to wake up out of my mother's bullshit fantasy land? When can I actually just take epilepsy medication that helps me? We already know what medications get me better. I speak better, my voice gets better, I'm able to move my legs better, I can actually drive a car, I can ride a bike better, I can work longer hours, and I don't get injured. And when I go for a walk in the cold, I don't end up on the side of the road having seizures, and flashing lights don't hurt me, and we don't have the problems all the time. But I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to get better. Instead, I'm only allowed to get hurt, get mangled, have people stab me, burn me, have doctors mistreat me, take drugs that hurt me. Oh yeah, I'm allowed to go into the doctors and get a bunch of drugs that will cause me to be a drooling mess on the ground who can never work or function. But epilepsy medication that I know will work, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not talking about controlled substances either. I'm talking about medications like Triliptal. We take Triliptal and we mix that with another epilepsy medication, and we give me a diagnosis on paper, so when I have a seizure on the side of the road, or when I do drive and something happens, people know on the sign that, when they come and see this bloody mess, they know what's going on. But if we give me the proper medication, then none of that usually is much of a problem. But after 25 years of it getting worse, we need this fixed. Anyways, in part 2, I want to go over some of this dark information too, like for YouTube. Like one of them was, did you know there's a hangman's measurement? Yes, for body weight. I weigh so little that I can't be hung. Yes, if you wanted to hang me, you would need to use more than like 10 feet of rope. Yes, you would have to drop me off a cliff to hang me. If you try to drop me out of like a 1-story window or 2-story window, even that might not work because I'm losing so much weight. Yeah, the lighter you are, the harder it is for you to hang. That's why there's the hangman ratio. If you use too much rope, you can actually rip off a person's head and decapitate them. But if the rope is too short, you just strangle them, and then it's a horrible death. So if you want to properly snap my neck, I need about 8.4. I need 8 feet and 4 inches of rope to 10 feet of rope. It has to be in between that range to hang me. Any more than 10 feet, you might decapitate me, and any less than 8 feet, and I just get strangled to death. So the perfect ratio to snap my neck is 8 to 10 feet of dropping length. So yeah, there's the hangman's ratio, what a lot of people don't understand, especially if they're going to commit suicide. And the reason why I know that is because walking down a street is dangerous for me. When I go to work on a cold day, I have about a 60% chance that I might die on the way because I'm walking 2 miles with a neurological disorder. And so far, every year, I've had at least one seizure while doing this. And I woke up once with a car running over my hair, almost popping my head like a blueberry. So everything in life, I have to be careful. I've also frozen to death outside and died of exposure. And Saints Memorial Hospital had to bring me back to life. The nurse showed me, at least on paper, and told me how they pronounced me dead on arrival because my body temperature was in the 70s and I didn't seem to have a heart rate. But they said they were able to slowly recover and then shock me. Well, they shocked me, and then they said they slowly tried to heat me back up or something like that. But they said I wasn't breathing properly. I didn't have a heart rate. They just said it looked like I was dead. I didn't see my chest moving at all. So I don't know how I could be breathing if my chest isn't moving, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I just woke up and they told me how I was in a coma for a day and a half, or I was asleep for a day and a half. I didn't see no coma on the paperwork. I did see that I was dead on arrival, DOA on arrival. The ambulances thought I was dead. They brought me in, and I was brought back to life. Apparently, the doctors knew better. But the intake people and the people who arrived assumed I was dead. I had little to no pulse, so no pulse on arrival. It didn't look like I was breathing at all, but another paper said shallow breaths. So I know that they did see shallow breaths. And I did come back to life, and they did say they gave me a treatment of those letters where they shock you. That's usually the heart or get you back started. And that's all I could find out. Oh, and the body temperature on the paper was in the 70s. 70s. My body temperature was on the 70 range. That's like a dead body range. That's impossible. But of course, I froze to death of exposure on the Riverwalk in Lowell, and I was brought to Saints Memorial Hospital. But that's only one of hundreds. So when you don't drive, again, why don't I drive? Because I have a neurological disorder that needs to be treated first. If I drive, people will get hurt. Now, it's safer for me, but more dangerous to other people. And because I'm deeply religious and I take other people's safety into consideration more than my own. So if I drive, yeah, I'll make a lot more money. Yeah, I would be able to be a lot more safe. And yes, it would be way better for me. But it's dangerous because I know I can't control my feet, my legs, and my arms to a slight of an inch. I have muscle spasms, falls. I sometimes go unconscious. And I know this, but the doctors only have bits and pieces, and my mother and father hid this from the doctors and are still trying to hide it. They want to, every time I have epilepsy, they want to make it out like I have demons or it's a mental illness, kind of like they did in the 1800s or the early 1900s. When people had epilepsy, they said, look, a demon, a bad demon guy. And that's all that's happening here is I have problems with my speech, so I sound funny. I walk funny, and I've had problems moving my body for years. And once when doctors use the information I have that's true, that we know is true, from beginning to end, they go, oh, yep, that's it. Oh, you were given these drugs? Yep, that's it. Oh, that happened? Yep, that's it. And I've known, I've been talking about this, so this is nothing new. It's not like I came to a conclusion at the age of 24. No. I've been talking about the overdose at age 7, at the age of 7. I brought it up at the doctor's office at age 7. But my mother would lie and call it other things. Oh, that's an allergy attack. Oh, don't listen to him. Oh, he's just a liar. Oh, that metal is stolen. Oh, that's his bumping in the furniture. That's just suicidal behaviors. Yes, that's what that is. He's bumping in the furniture on purpose. So the doctors wouldn't listen. But if you put it all together, it makes very clear sense. It was epilepsy. I mean, if you have a 13-year-old, 14-year-old boy bumping in the furniture all the time, and then he comes at 24, he tells you, hey, you guys were really, Patricia was really mentally ill. She was hurting me badly, and I have epilepsy. That's what it is. It's not like I came to a conclusion now. I had all the details there. We knew my mother drugged me. We knew something happened to me. We knew I was brought to Texas. We knew after I told doctors there, I was brought to New Mexico. We know my education was cut off. We know they made up stories about me. We know that I had no education, but they called me slow and stupid. We know they overdrugged me. We know that she slipped me pills. We knew I was bumping in the furniture, but my mother was covering that up. We know that she was giving me false information. My mother was giving my dad false information. We know my mother was lying to doctors. We know that all this has results and consequences for me. But I didn't know what it all meant. But now as an adult, when I spell it all out, my mother was killing me, hurting my body. She was doing illegal stuff. I have epilepsy, and the doctors aren't able to treat me because my father is still trying to cover it up. So still today, I have to die because other people want to commit crimes and avoid responsibility for their actions. They're like, no, Zach just doesn't. No, I tried for 25 years. I tried all the pills. I've tried all the meds, and I get worse and I get worse. We now tried epilepsy medication. I get insanely better just from Trileptal. If I just take Trileptal for epilepsy, oh boy, I get a lot better. So we know that medications like gabapentin, Trileptal, we know, okay, anything for epilepsy, even the epilepsy exercises, anything, I mean, when you go over the symptoms, the medications, it's very clear what this is. I experienced an overdose at age 7. I had epilepsy. I had problems with coordination and movement. I needed epilepsy medication back then, but instead my mother started drugging me with the wrong drugs on top of that and then trying to cover up her mistakes, making it so I couldn't get medical care. Then because my mother was making up all these stories, the medications got out of control, doing more harm to me, as well as it really messed with my mental health. I now have anxiety, PTSD, all these other issues as my mother continues to fuck with my mind and body. So that on top of the epilepsy is a big problem. Plus, they try to prevent any doctors from being able to help me. So that's another problem, is we don't have any paperwork on it. Another problem is my father tried to collect Social Security for my mother's lies. So as my mother makes me crippled, my father tries to make money off what my mother is doing to me. So my mother's making me crippled, making up stories about illnesses, then my father's using that in Social Security to get money from the state. And this is state Social Security, but it still affects you. And then my father does not care. If you're thinking he did this for my well-being, he literally kept my clothing money and got me punished for his own greed many times. I'm not even kidding. I got thrown out of a housing call in Lawrence because of my father's greed. He was supposed to hand it over to the housing program, rooming house, that works with adults 19 to 27. And instead, he stole the money and ran off with it to try to buy himself a house. Then he got caught and he held my health care and my health, I'm still trying to find out, hostage. Basically, it's either they blame me for his mistake or I'm supposed to bail him out and I lose everything. So I bailed my father out and I lost everything that I was trying to work towards. I was trying to work towards my first apartment. Instead, my father goes, come home and move in with me to take care of your mother. When really, that's not what he was telling. He was just lying. The reason why I was moving home is because he screwed up and I bailed him out so he didn't have to go to court. So fucked up. But anyways, yeah, some of the stuff I'm going to go over in my next video, the YouTube video, the one where I'm trying to go over some of these fun, weird, dark things that they like on the corners of YouTube, will be like the hangman's calculations. Because everything in life to me is a calculation. Like, for instance, did you know your medicine cabinet and your tea and spice cabinet both have drugs in it, alkaloids? Yes. The cinnamon in your cinnamon in your spice cabinet might be toxic right now. There might be a chance that you die 20 years from now because you took that cinnamon. I'm not kidding. There's a lot of things. Or how about the blue dye 40? You know, the blue food coloring you might have? That's toxic in most countries. Blue dye 40 is banned in most countries, and they've switched to blue dye 1 or another blue dye that's more safe. But we have plenty of toxins in America. Or here's another one. Why are people with no teeth drinking fluoride? There are elderly people with no teeth and babies who drink fluoride. You're not supposed to take medications you don't need. And fluoride has been known with pregnant women to cause issues with the fetus's brain development. But yet they're forced to drink fluoride if they got teeth or not. There's a million different toxins. There's a lot of lead in some areas of medicine too. We're finding lead in medication. Also, here's one. Why are pharmaceutical companies allowed to sell sugar pills as other pills just because there's a law that allows them to kind of loophole their way in? Oops, we didn't lab test. We'll switch out the label. Oops, we didn't lab test. We'll switch out the label. Oops, we didn't lab test. We'll switch out the label. And they're allowed to do that repeatedly and sell supplements over the counter that are fake. There's a bunch of this shit like that. That's how they get away with the Viagra and those boner pills at the gas station. Yeah, some of those herbal boner pills actually have chemical Viagra in it. They just go, oops, we didn't lab test. Well, we'll fix it. And then they put in sugar pills in its place for a year. And then they put the Viagra back in. And then when they get caught, they go, oops, we didn't lab test. And they're allowed to do that with any supplement that was invented after 1980. So any supplement that's on the shelf that came out after 1980 does not have to be lab tested before sale, does not have to have medical reasons behind it, any real, they have no government oversight, in other words. They're allowed to pull a trick, a loophole to make extra money. There's a bunch of these loopholes that Big Pharma has been taking advantage of all the way back to the 60s. And you got to look out for them. Like, for instance, do you think codeine was taken out of cough medicine because it gets you high and it's abusable? No. They replaced it with a drug that gets you even more high and is even more abusable. So we know it's not that reason.